Markets down locally, the employment numbers in the United States are very important for global markets because it tells us what is happening, of course, in the world's biggest economy. And those numbers, employment numbers in the US, were good. So we had a rush to the US dollar, and by extension, that hit the rand, taking it to some of the weakest levels we've seen this year. And that pretty much defined most of the markets. I'll try and confirm that with our market analyst, Joseph Busha, who joins me now. Joseph, thanks indeed for talking to us. I mean, was it that the market not doing too great today, still in that record territory, but again, it's about what's happening in the world's biggest economy. Have I got that remotely correct?
That's correct, Devan. I think, what happens in the US certainly drives the market. If they have a flu, we kind of catch flu from the capital markets perspective. The US dollar is certainly strengthening. But I think we've got our own issues. So the rand now 17.65 to the dollar, and I think also tracking some of the emerging market currencies like the Turkish lira, which basically is at its lowest 18.85 to the dollar, given the fact that I think they're also battling with inflation and also just the pressures basically that's coming through with the fears of a recession and interest rates remaining very high. The president of Turkey saying, the Turkey central bank must cut interest rates. That will put the rates, negative real rates are quite a little bit higher in terms of widening the gap there. So lots of pressures apart from our own issues. And as I mentioned earlier on, just the fears of global recession, given that we have lots of tensions in the world. The Ukraine-Russia issue is not finished. And certainly there was a little bit of some play with the Chinese balloon within the US-China relationships.
Yeah, and we've seen at one point, the rand dropping or strengthening below 17 rand not so long ago. It's now back at 17.70. We'll take a look at those figures in a moment. But look, I see also on the markets, not as a direct result of the mining conference, the Indaba rather, but look, mining shares didn't fare well today. And I suppose, again, it's just catching the cold, as you say, of what's happening overall. I got to ask you the context of those mining shares. I mean, what's your take on what's been happening at the mining Indaba at the moment? I see a lot of attention on our constraints here locally, be it electricity, be it our infrastructure network, but you still have mining executives having an interest in this country. What's your take on what's going on there?
Also, the resource sector really remains quite key in terms of global. Remember, we need resources also even to find some of the energy solutions. So the CEO of Sibanye-Stillwater, Neil Foreman, basically talking about that they want to make sure that they are geographically diversified within the green energy sector, buying a lithium mine in Australia, sorry, in Finland. So certainly I think there's lots of talk in terms of the South African being quite central to the resource market globally. And the electricity certainly is putting lots of pressure and putting on additional costs to the mining activities or just in general the entire industry in SA. So that is really putting the damper onto the mining shares because of the extended or the additional cost they are bearing. The government saying possibly in the next 18 months we're still going to have stage 2 load shedding. Today Shoprite, I think, announcing that they've spent about 1 billion in diesel to just be able to keep some of their shops running. So that is really not good from an energy perspective, but you see some basically trying to take the positive side of it, saying they are not more into the gold sector. But one interesting one was Tugela basically buying a mine for about 4.1 billion in Australia. And you see the shares are up 2% today. And they believe that, the core sector is here to stay possibly for more decades than what most analysts and, people believe. And this is really just against what environmentalists are looking for.
All right, yeah, no, so you wrapped it up there. Well, that time's against us, but we'll leave it there. Thanks for that wrap up there, Joseph Busha, market analyst there, talking about today's market activity. Well, let's take a